Two Fates, the story of my divorce, is essentially about a couple that's going through divorce. And in today's sphere, I think everybody can connect with. All of us have friends, members of the family who've gone through that. But although the book is intended to be a romantic comedy, when you read it, there is a very inner thread that runs through the book, and that one is a hope. You have this bickering couple that wants to get divorced, but right through it, right through the humor that you've managed to bring out so beautifully, Julie, there is an inner thread of hope that runs through the book. So was that intended? And to have people come telling you about it?
I don't think anything in this book was intended. It was completely unconscious thing. But like you said, I'm just really optimistic still about relationships. You know, one of the topics that I obsess about on my blog is I keep writing letters to the one, which I still keep doing that. And people ask me, they sort of expect me to be cynical because I'm divorced. You know, they sort of think that even yesterday after my talk at TEDx, someone asked me, so just tell me this, are you open to a relationship now? I'm very open. Just haven't met anyone, you know. So I've always been this love-struck person. So I think that's what got me into trouble most of the time. But now with the stability, yes, I've grown, but that hasn't made me cynical. I really believe in happily ever after. I believe in forever. I believe in all of that, and so I think that's what it sort of comes through, because, you know, funnily, I don't want to give. You guys have read the book? No. Okay. Because I tried very hard to. In my head at that time, I was just working on a parody, right? So the parody in my head was the inverse of the story of my marriage. So if it had to be, it had divorce in the title. So I thought that the only way to write the parody would be to bring it, you know, write a book about divorce. But it turned out to be a romantic comedy, and it's just, you know, that's just goes to prove that only what's inside will. I cannot write a cynical book on marriage, or it's not there. I don't believe in that.
Which is so beautiful, I think. Theology. So beautiful to be positive in today's world. We have enough depressing things going around us anyway. So, for those of you who've read the book and who've managed to read the blog, Julie has a host of characters that come up, you know, loud-mouthed aunts and very nosy people. And you sort of, you've tried to bring out the Indian family scenario very, very well, where nothing is private, even in marriage, even if it means a newly married couple. So did those inspirations come from real people? Have you had anybody say, hey, you know, that Perima you talked about, she really reminds me of something. Have you had anyone saying that to you?
My aunts are now really scared of me. They're like, seriously, because they're like, you know what, don't say anything to her, we'll feature in the next book. But no, it's not specific people, but yeah, I think as Indians, every time I write a blog post about aunties, Indian aunties, you know, and I don't mean chronological age when I say auntie, I'm talking about a mentality where people very deliberately hold on to prehistoric ideas on a variety of things like gender roles and marriage and, you know, just all these people, and we all relate to them and we all have them in our lives. So every time I write that, I get a host of comments from all these young ones. I'm like, oh my god, I thought that was my story, you know. Especially about young ones who don't want to get married. And then there's all this pressure to get married, you know, and they all complain about it. So I wrote this post about why are you not married, or something. Why are you not married, or something. This is a typical question that all young people get. In fact, my brother was on a, sorry, I'm digressing. My brother was on a flight from London. He lives in London, so he was coming here to Chennai. And he's joined the seminary, but at that time he was working and he was a software consultant and he was 30 plus, not married. So he was in the flight and he just noted that the person next to him was an Indian auntie. And he was like, okay, you know, I'm screwed, like 7 hours of this. And then he noticed she was Tamilian too, because then she was like, so where are you going? It was a connecting flight, so he said, Chennai. So she was like, oh, Tamil, no. So he was like, I'm dead, you know, I'm finishing. He said, yeah. He tried to keep it short. Then the next question, she doesn't even know his name, right? Are you married? And this is something you only find in India. So he is like, no. And then she goes, but why? It's like, it's our right to know why you're not married, because here, if you're 30 plus, if you're a guy and you're 30 plus and you're earning well, you're doing well for yourself, you live abroad. Then she asked him, so how much do you make? He was like, dude, So he said, I make enough. And then she goes, you have your own house? And he said, no. Then he was getting really mad. She said, but tell me, why do you not marry? Because for them, it's just, they don't get it. They're like, yeah, it's the obvious thing. And if you're not doing it, that's because you're probably gay, or you have some serious issues, and or you have, or you smoke and drink and you have white female friends, which is all bad habits, by the way. So it's really crazy here. So the auntie situation here is very, very real, something I'm passionate about, because I think I really suffered at the hands of aunties nearly all my life. And especially when I got divorced, it was just an overdose. I find it really funny that when you're married, suddenly people start treating you like you're an adult, you're grown up, and you just, although I was a child when I got married, I had no idea what I was doing, but people just don't interfere, they don't tell you what to do, because now you're with your husband, it's his problem kind of thing, and nobody questioned anything. But then I finally get divorced, and I had very valid reasons to get divorced. It wasn't just, we're not compatible, it wasn't like that. We get divorced and suddenly random people start questioning me, why are you staying out late? Giving me curfews, and you should, you're a young girl, you shouldn't stay out. I'm like, dude, I have a child, I'm a parent, what are you saying? But this is a very real situation in our country, and it's just how it is. And of course, I didn't find this funny at that time when it was happening. So at that time, I just wanted to, I don't know, I was screaming in my head most of the time. But that's what time does, yeah? Because by the time I got to writing this book, it was a 3-year break, maybe 2-year break. And I had really slowed down and calmed down. I wasn't angry or bitter. I dealt with it. I healed by then. So you start seeing the humor in the situation funnily. Now it's just funny to me. Anything that these people do, it's hilarious, and I'm just making mental notes, yeah? It goes to my draft folder. You will come up in the blog post later. So yeah, that's... Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, you have...
So I take you off from this book and off from the divorce
Sure.
into your blog.
Absolutely.
You want
I have seen the story, namesake, The Life of Pi.
Okay.
Judy Pavitra Balan.
Yeah.
Does it bother you?
I have a blog post on that too. Yes.
I read that one.
You did. Yeah, no, I always find it really odd because I come from a... I find it really odd, this naming thing in our families, because I come from a Tamil Christian family, and we have this odd tradition where we have a Christian name and an Indian name, because we want to, our way of connecting to both our religious roots as well as our cultural roots, and it's just weird that they mess up our names like this. Judy, Pavitra, what the hell is that? Depends. So when I was growing up, I would I'll gauge my audience and I'll give the name accordingly. So if it's a really elderly person, I'll say Pavitra. Say young person, I'll say Judy. It went on like that. So then I finally knocked off my middle name altogether, and I just have Judy Balan, which now has funnily worked for me because it's the name that is actually working. They're like, okay, Judy and Balan, like how did that happen? I get weird questions. Are you related to Vidya Balan? In fact, after my book was released, there was some Twitter conversation going on, Judy Balan, Vidya Balan, and I'm like, I look like Vidya Balan. So yeah, that is a problem for me, but it's worked out. But in my second book, again, I've tripped a lot on that.
You said it is a romantic comedy. Then you talk about divorce. Is it romantic divorce?
Yeah. I can't actually answer that question without giving away the ending, but yeah, it's divorce in this book is not serious. It's not like, when people read this book, they come and ask me, so is that your story? Because if this is really my story, if I had a guy like this, I wouldn't have divorced him. These two are typically basically what I'm trying to say in this is nowadays I also find a lot of people who just want to split up for really trivial reasons, and because we have the option these days. I think when I look at my parents and their marriage, and I think it's lovely because I've come to really appreciate that generation and how they've done things, because now we just have things too easy. We can just, I don't have to put up with that, and ego hassles, there are just too many of that. But a marriage demands, compromise and adjusting, and a lot of people split up for really trivial reasons, and I think most of that bickering, which is an essential part of marriage, has led to a lot of people breaking up, and I really am not in support of that, and which is why I always make it a point to say it wasn't like that for me. I had serious issues which activists would come after, so yeah, I think this book is like that. It's all those small things, those small adjustments that you're fighting about the color of the curtains, and you're snoring and I don't want to sit next to you and you're snoring, or the girl, you cannot kiss him with bad breath, and things like that, morning breath and stuff like that. It's all very, very trivial issues that they have as newly married. I mean, they're not newly married. In fact, these guys have been in love. So this sort of takes off from Two States, right? So Two States is about this couple that is working so hard to get married, trying to convince their parents because they come from different communities and stuff. So here it sort of takes off and says, what happens after you do that? Because initially it's all about a challenge, because when you're really trying to get married, you want to convince your parents. There's a focus, you're focused on that, you have to convince them. But after that, you're not really focused on what you have to deal with after you get married with this person whom you have to adjust to, and it's a very real situation that people ignore, So this is the fun part after marriage. And I also thought, as in this genre, romantic comedy is usually the pursuit of a relationship. So it's usually a young girl looking for love, And I thought this was a nice break, a refreshing break from that, because while it's still, the romance is still there, it's still about a situation after the happily ever after, what happens then, and is it worth salvaging? Can we do something, to make that work, that institution work? So I don't want to give away the ending.
It's a very interesting reading. Question?
As a blogger, you have the instantaneous replies